Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
The year was 2025. It was a cold morning in November in Washington, D.C. The air felt heavy with expectation. Many news cameras were set up around the White House. Reporters waited with their microphones ready. They were there for a special guest. This guest was Zohran Mamdani, the new mayor-elect of New York City. People often called him a socialist because of his ideas for helping ordinary citizens. He was coming to meet President Donald Trump. President Trump was a conservative leader with very different views. Most people believed this meeting would be very difficult. They expected a big argument between them. The media was very eager. They hoped to see a major disagreement. They thought the socialist mayor and the conservative president would fight because their ideas were so different. Everyone believed the meeting would be filled with anger. They thought there would be no common ground or understanding. Then something surprising happened. Mayor-elect Mamdani arrived and walked towards the White House. President Donald Trump came out to greet him. Cameras flashed as people watched closely. Then President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Mamdani shook hands. It was a firm handshake, and they even showed small smiles. This image was a big shock. It confused the entire nation. Nobody had expected such a moment. How could these two leaders, who seemed so different, shake hands like that? This one simple handshake was the start of something new. It began to change how politics worked in the country. This event showed that even very different people might find a way to talk. It opened a new path for the future of the nation's political map. 2. The new mayor. Zohran Mamdani became New York City's new mayor in November 2025. His win was a big surprise for many people across the nation. At 34 years old, he became the youngest mayor in over 100 years. He was also the first Muslim and first South Asian mayor in the city's long history. His victory clearly signaled a desperate need for change in New York City. Before this big election, Mamdani served as a New York State Assembly member. During his time there, he worked hard for everyday people. He was well known as a taxi driver advocate. He even organized a public hunger strike, which helped many taxi drivers get millions of dollars in debt relief. He also helped create a new pilot program for free public bus transportation, aiming to make travel easier and cheaper. His previous work as a counselor, helping people stop losing their homes, showed him firsthand the money problems many New Yorkers faced. Mamdani's campaign offered clear and direct solutions to these problems. He promised free bus services for everyone and a freeze on rents for many stabilized homes. He also planned to build thousands of new, affordable homes and open city-run grocery stores that would offer wholesale prices, making food more affordable. These promises spoke directly to many tired New Yorkers. The city had very high rents, with the average rent often taking more than half of what a typical family earned each month. Living costs were difficult, and people were leaving the city because they simply could not afford to live there anymore. His election victory was truly astonishing because he defeated well-known establishment Democratic candidates. For example, he successfully beat former Governor Andrew Cuomo twice.
first in the Democratic primary and then again when Cuomo ran as an independent in the general election. Notably, Cuomo had even been endorsed by Donald Trump, but Mamdani still won a decisive victory. This showed that voters wanted something new and different, not just the usual politicians. Mamdani won with more than 50% of the vote in the general election, which was the first time in over 50 years a mayoral candidate achieved such a strong mandate. This indicated a powerful demand for his ideas. Mamdani's politics were very different from traditional business-friendly mayors of the past. Previous leaders often focused on attracting big businesses and promoting financial growth. Mamdani, who identified as a democratic socialist, put the needs of working people and the issue of affordability first. His rise showed that many New Yorkers believed a fundamental change was needed to make the city a better, fairer place for everyone, not just the wealthy elite. 3. The angry talk. The weeks before the meeting were full of tension. President Donald Trump often wrote about Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani on social media. He called Mamdani a communist mayor. President Trump had used this word many times during Mamdani's election campaign. Mamdani, however, always said he was a democratic socialist, not a communist. People in New York City felt worried. They feared President Trump would stop sending money to the city. During the campaign, President Trump had said he might cut federal funding. He even said he might send the National Guard to the city.
These threats made many New Yorkers anxious. The city needed federal money for many important things. Without it, new plans for housing or transport might stop. Leaders from both sides often spoke angry words in the news. Republican figures called Mamdani dangerous and unsuitable for the city. Some even called him a jihadist because of his past actions. Mamdani and his supporters also criticized President Trump strongly. They called him a despot and authoritarian. Many people told Mamdani not to go to the White House meeting. They thought it was better to avoid President Trump completely. Some believed meeting President Trump would only make things worse. They worried it would look like Mamdani agreed with the president. But Mamdani said the meeting was important. He saw it as a normal step for a new mayor to talk with the president. He wanted to speak for New Yorkers and their needs. The city felt stuck between these two powerful leaders. It was like New York was caught in a big fight. Many people wondered if anything good could come from such an angry situation. They hoped for change, but saw only conflict. This difficult time made everyone wonder what would happen next. 4. The meeting. The closed-door meeting began quietly in the White House Oval Office. Outside, many people expected a difficult talk. But inside, something different happened. President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani sat together. The room was not filled with anger, but with a new feeling, curiosity. President Trump looked at Mamdani with interest. He saw a young man who had won a big election, even when many thought he would lose. Trump respected this ability to win against the odds. He told Mamdani that his victory in New York City was impressive. Trump himself had run against many people and won. He understood what it meant to fight and win. Soon, the talk moved to New York City. They spoke about the high cost of living. Rent was too high. Groceries were too expensive, and transport costs too much for many families. Both men agreed that New Yorkers often faced bad deals in real estate and other important areas. President Trump, having built many buildings in New York, understood the pressures of property and development. Mamdani, who fought for taxi drivers and lower rents, explained how these high costs deeply hurt everyday people, especially working families and those with low incomes. It was clear they both saw a problem that needed fixing. As they talked, a strange and unexpected thing happened. Both men realized they strongly disliked some of the same things about the system. They both felt that the current political establishment often did not truly help ordinary citizens. They believed that many rules and old ways of doing things served powerful interests, not the average person. They thought that the system needed big changes, not just small ones. This shared frustration with the status quo started to quickly change the mood in the room, from formal to almost familiar. The conversation turned truly friendly during a moment of public questioning after the private talk. A reporter asked Mamdani if he still called President Trump a fascist. Mamdani seemed unsure how to answer. President Trump smiled and quickly said, "That's all right, you can just say yes, it's easier." Mamdani then smiled and said yes, and President Trump playfully tapped his arm. This small exchange showed a surprising warmth. Inside the room, some people were listening to the meeting. They were aides and staff members. They heard the conversations and watched the two men. The sudden change from sharp insults to easy conversation was a big surprise to them. They had expected a fight, but they saw something else entirely. President Trump even told Mamdani, "We find common ground on much more than I anticipated." He also said he wanted to help New York City thrive because he desired the city to be successful. This was very different from what everyone expected before the meeting. Mamdani also described the meeting as productive, saying it was about a shared admiration and love for New York City. The air in the Oval Office was no longer tense. It was clear that a new and unexpected path was opening between these two very different leaders. 5. A common problem. President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani found a surprising agreement in their meeting. They realized they shared a common goal: helping regular people with the high cost of living. This was the start of a shared populist plan. Both leaders agreed that rent was much too high in New York City, making it difficult for families to live there. This problem was affecting many voters, no matter their political beliefs. It was not just rent, but also the cost of food, childcare, and transport that concerned people. This shared concern about daily costs created a strong bond between the two leaders, who otherwise held very different views. President Trump had once criticized Mamdani strongly. However, during their talk, his feelings changed. He said he would feel comfortable living in New York City under Mamdani's leadership. Trump announced that he wanted to help New York City grow and do well, stating he expected to be assisting him, not hindering him. Trump saw himself as a builder and a savior for the city. This new outlook was important for Trump, especially as many people were unhappy with the economy and rising prices across the country.
He saw Mamdani's focus on affordability as a way to connect with voters who felt left behind, including some of his own supporters. Mamdani, though a democratic socialist, showed he was very practical. He knew that getting help for New Yorkers was more important than fighting over political ideas. He accepted Trump's offer of support even from someone who was an ideological enemy. Mamdani's plans included free buses, lower rent, and building thousands of affordable homes. To do this, he needed a lot of money, including about $7.4 billion in federal funding. They talked about a large federal plan to help with money. This plan would focus on fixing city buildings and roads, known as infrastructure, and also on building more housing. This was a strange partnership. Trump's America First idea often meant focusing on national strength, jobs, and building projects. Mamdani's socialist housing policies, such as rent freezes and creating more affordable homes for everyone, aimed to help working people directly. Yet both found a way to agree that federal investment in infrastructure and housing could help make New York City more affordable and improve lives. This showed how economic problems could bring together very different political ideas. This new alliance between the conservative president and the socialist mayor-elect created a unique situation. It meant that many politicians who usually stood in the middle, like moderate Democrats and Republicans, were left out of this important conversation. The two leaders, from very different ends of the political world, decided to work together directly to solve what they both saw as a common problem for the people. 6. Everyone is shocked. The press conference in the White House Rose Garden began. Everyone watched closely. President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani stood together. This was a big surprise for many. People expected a fight, not a friendly meeting. The two leaders spoke kindly about each other. President Trump said Mamdani was a very rational person.
He also said they found common ground and that he would help New York City. Mamdani, too, called the meeting productive. He spoke about their shared admiration and love for the city. This friendly talk confused many people. The Democratic Party leaders in Washington were very surprised. They had seen Mamdani as too far left. Now he was working with President Trump. Senator Chuck Schumer, a top Democrat, simply said the meeting could only benefit New York. This showed how much the situation had changed for him and others. Traditional Republicans were also unsure. They usually spoke strongly against socialism, but here was President Trump praising a Democratic socialist. This made their message unclear. Some conservative groups were upset. They felt the president was going against their party's ideas. A resolution against socialism had passed in the House of Representatives on the same day, making the president's actions even more confusing for them. Representative Elise Stefanik, who often criticized Mamdani, said nothing. Her silence was noticed. For some of Mamdani's progressive supporters, the news was also difficult. They had voted for him because he stood against leaders like President Trump. Now, seeing them friendly, some felt confused or even a little let down. They wondered what this new alliance meant for their progressive goals. Cable news channels were full of discussion. Reporters tried hard to explain what happened. They used words like cordial and chummy, but it was hard to put this event into old political categories. The usual critics, who always had something to say, were mostly quiet.
They, like everyone else, were trying to understand this new, unexpected friendship in politics. The whole nation watched, shocked by the surprising turn of events. 7. Changes in the city. After the surprising meeting in Washington, things started to change in New York City. In the months that followed, the words spoken by President Donald Trump and Mayor Mamdani became actions. Federal money, vital for New York City's economy, began to flow. This funding was especially important for the city's fiscal year 2026 budget, which needed around $7.4 billion from the federal government. This money was then used for big and necessary city projects. It gave a boost to the MTA, the system that runs New York City's subways and buses, helping with repairs and improvements. It also supported public housing initiatives, aiming to create more affordable homes for families. President Donald Trump, who had earlier threatened to cut funds, now openly promised to assist New York, saying he wanted the city to thrive. This support was a clear sign of the new cooperation. This unexpected federal help made Mayor Mamdani's early time in office much more stable. His new administration could move forward with its plans, knowing it had support from the White House. People in New York City saw that the mayor had a powerful ally. This strange alliance also began to form new groups of voters. Working-class people from both traditional left-wing and right-wing backgrounds found that they had common interests. They saw that both President Donald Trump and Mayor Mamdani focused on making daily life in the city easier and more affordable. Reports showed that some of President Donald Trump's own voters had even supported Mamdani in the mayoral election because of shared worries about high living costs. This showed a new way voters were thinking, looking past old party labels. This new political landscape meant that some traditional power centers lost influence. Large corporate interests in New York, who usually held much sway in city decisions, found themselves on the sidelines. The strong focus on problems for everyday people, such as housing costs and public transport, shifted attention away from their usual concerns. The old lines between political parties seemed less important than before. This was the start of a new kind of politics, often called transactional politics. It meant that leaders would make deals and work together on specific issues, even if they came from very different political backgrounds. They cared more about getting practical results for the city than about keeping old party rules or beliefs. This period showed how desperation for change could lead to unexpected partnerships. 8. The future. The meeting between President Donald Trump and Mayor-elect Zohran Mamdani had big effects. It showed that what people call politics was changing. Old labels like socialist or Republican began to matter less. What became important was what leaders actually did for the people. For many New Yorkers, having a home they could afford or a reliable bus was more important than a leader's political party. This event taught people that working together, even with very different ideas, could bring real changes. It was about getting results, not just names. This new way of working could spread. Other cities faced similar problems like high rent and job struggles. If New York City saw good results from this strange alliance, leaders in other places might try it too. They might look at shared problems first, rather than focusing on old arguments. It showed that when common issues are big enough, leaders might find new ways to solve them, no matter their party. This could change politics all over the country. However, this new way of working had risks. The friendship between President Trump and Mamdani was not based on deep shared beliefs. It was a fragile agreement. President Trump was known for changing his mind quickly. If problems arose or if he saw a new political benefit, he could easily stop his support. Mamdani also had to balance his own values with this new partnership. His supporters, who were very different from Trump's, might not always agree with this alliance. This made the future of their cooperation uncertain. It was a deal made out of need, not a lasting bond. Ultimately, this story showed how big problems can make very unexpected friends. When citizens faced high costs of living and felt desperate for help, leaders had to respond. This desperation made leaders like Trump and Mamdani look past their many differences. They found a common enemy in the problems of the city. This proved that sometimes urgent needs can bring together people who would normally never agree. It underlined that practical solutions can sometimes be more powerful than strict political ideas. It reminded everyone that true change often comes from strange places. So, do you think this new way of working, ignoring old party lines for common goals, is good for the future of our country?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.